I don't know if it fits an X, but let me blog a story about a hobo I knew once. 2009 to 2010. We had this guy who was a hobo, short hair, full of scars, always had a 5 o'clock shadow. I don't know where he lived or slept on the streets, or if he had a really cheap apartment. Constantly begged for cash and opportunities to do odd jobs, especially from my father. Dad would pay him $50 once in a while, I guess just so hobo can fuck off. For context, Dad was always frugal and stingy. Anyway, hobo would wander around our immediate neighborhood, digging potholes in the summer, or climbing on cars to shovel snow while denting the roofs in the winter. Around summer 2011, I see him for the last time. He is in a black suit and white shirt, looking like he was straight out of Men in Black. Suddenly grows into short beard, and only now while thinking about it can I say he looked 100% like Drake. He was talking on the phone on what seemed to be an iPhone 4 in hindsight, although iPhone 4 came out in autumn. After he gets out of my line of sight, I have never seen him since. My abductions. Sometimes I find myself doing things that I don't understand until after I've done them. This is how I ended up in a UFO abductee meeting. I did not have a memory of having been abducted, but it felt like a place I had to be. One of the first things that happened was someone handed me a stack of art prints and said, "Hey, go ahead and go through these. Take any you like. I am just getting rid of them." I am flipping through them, and it's like, gray, reptilian, UFO, dude caught in a beam of light, gray, MIB, gray. And then this one, pic related. And I remember it. I remember being a kid, sleeping in the basement on that stupid twin bed with the springs that jammed into my back, and then being there but not there, and being instructed on how to breathe, how to keep calm and still while they worked. The trick was to train myself into keeping calm and relaxed while they worked. I guess they had to try to make me unconscious, but whatever tech they used to do so was not perfect, so they were using some kind of meditation technique with me instead. And those threads in the picture above, that is what they were working with. There wasn't any pain, but there was definitely a sense of these things passing through the soles of my feet, this tugging and pushing of threads up between the bones, through the muscle, up through my ankle and calves. I got the sense they were up in my torso too, but I really could not feel them anywhere past the knee. I don't know what they were doing, an experiment of some kind. I do know I'm not special or a chosen one or some bullshit. I was a scientific curiosity, a kind of follow-up for kids who'd had the specific kind of tumor I was born with that was originally removed in my infancy. I don't know. Whatever experiment they were doing, it did not impact my life especially, but that skill did. No matter how much something hurts, or how badly I've been injured over the years, I can always steal a part of my body. Gallbladder attack hit me hard a few years back. 11 out of 10 pain, driving me to the absolute brink of insanity. But when it came time for the IV, I just made my left arm dead. Just shut off all ability to make it move. Thank God too. Needed that needle, man. Anyway, I am fairly certain they've checked in here and there over the years. I've had a few mornings here and there where it felt like I went to bed, but did not actually sleep. Just had missing time until morning. In the sense of missing memory. Something like that anyway. So, I don't know. It is what it is. Anybody else have something like this? So, I am going to keep this real simple. Almost a year and a half ago, I believe I had a Men in Black experience. I was in New Orleans with my mother and brother, and we decided to stop at a Walmart before heading across the border to Mississippi to visit some beach town. As soon as we pulled into the parking lot, I noticed a large car parked up next to the building. Its windows were tinted to complete pitch black darkness, and it was the same with the windshield. There were also no plates on the front or the back. The car itself seemed to be a late 1980s four-door sedan, but I could not tell the make or model because it had no logos on the trunk or grille. I am fairly certain it was a Lincoln or a Cadillac. I tried to follow the car as well as I could because I thought it was odd that something like that could stick out so much and yet not get more attention. None of my family even said a word about it. you'd think there would be police checking it out, right? My brother eventually turned the car down an aisle, and my line of sight was cut off of the car. We pulled into a spot after about 10 seconds, and I jumped out of the car as quickly as I could to look at the black car, but it was gone. I asked my mother what she thought about it, and she acted as if she didn't know what car I was talking about. My brother said the same thing. In order to pull out of the parking lot and disappear that fast, the car would have had to burn serious rubber and make some noise, but I never heard anything. I never saw anyone get in or out of the car, so I figured whoever it was must have been watching a target. My theories have ranged from a wealthy gang leader's whip to the feds to MIB. I really didn't think it was them until I watched a video of Dan Aykroyd's experience a few hours ago, and it sounded eerily similar. What do you guys think? Anyone else have some sort of way to explain this? MIB experience threat. 10 years old, playing in an overgrown area bordering a cow field near my home. Look towards the field. See 3 MIB with derby hats and suitcases walking away from me, probably 200 to 300 feet away. Get spooked and run home panicking. Tell folks and friends. They laugh at me. Kind of reassured by the laughter. Maybe they were vets or something, checking up on the cows. Go back outside and decide to ride my bike to the property where the barns were. Notice something on the ground. Half a brain and brainstem, perfectly sliced, covered a pinkish translucent jelly, laying flat on the road. No roadkill anywhere, and half brain is pretty large. Poke with stick. Go to my friend's grandma's house just a block up the road, and jump on the trampoline, staring at the sky above the field, expecting something. Seriously freaked out now. Unexplained government activities. AX, it finally occurred to me to toss this story that my dad has told me a couple of times in the past. I figure if anyone has an idea about what really happened, neither of us really know why it took place. This takes place in about 67 or 68, out here in northwest Arkansas. When my dad was 7 or 8, he was taken out of school by some G-men. The teacher would not explain anything to him, just said, "Go with the men." His parents didn't come by, nothing. These guys just came and took him and his family right out of the classroom. Mind you, this is in the rural South in the 60s, so it was one classroom for all the kids. Every sibling in my dad's family was taken out of class by these guys, 2 girls and 3 boys, including my dad. The oldest being 13 and the youngest being 6, my dad being the second youngest. These government workers don't take away anyone else, just my dad and uncles and aunts. They all pile into a car. They are not allowed to ask any questions. The G-men then took all of the kids out into the middle of nowhere. Some abandoned fields where they had a tractor trailer set up. That was essentially their base for the next week. My grandparents never stopped by to see them, and they did not see anyone else. During the week, the workers did various physical and mental tests on the kids, including injecting them with who knows what. This took place throughout the week, and then without any results my dad could see, the workers packed up and sent them home. Still, nobody said anything about what happened. Any ideas on what exactly took place? I am stumped. We can make this a general MIB thread if you want. MIB stories. Anybody have any MIB encounter stories? I remember one, but it is not mine. I will share it anyways. It was in one of those TV shows of alien encounters and whatnot. Old lady tells story of finding a UFO crash near her home. She was scared, so she watched from afar. Noticed a small humanoid creature walking away from the crash. It looked as if it was wounded. She looked absolutely terrified when she described it, even though a 3 feet tall humanoid does not sound scary. I believe she called the cops. A while after, a couple of men in black suits came over to tell her that she saw nothing and she should talk about nothing that night. Told her, specifically, if you talk about this, remember, it is a big desert. Your body will never be found. Anyone else ever encountered a man in black? This is my experience. Years ago, I was crashing with a friend after a disastrous move to another city and career change that left me homeless for a while. He was a Fundi Christer who belonged to an evangelical sect. We got to chatting, and he proposed that if I was prepared to accept my own senses, I should pray to God for a sign to be given in an unmistakable, incontrovertible way that God exists. I agreed to his experiment and got down on my knees and asked for, and I quote, a sign from anyone or anything which cares to answer regarding whether or not God or gods exist, in a way which cannot be mistaken for anything else. Shortly after, we went for a walk. While crossing a nearby bridge, we stopped to watch workmen blasting the ice with dynamite. As we stood there, a black man in a black suit and a sharp, newly pressed black car coat and carrying a black lawyer's satchel walked up to me and grabbed me by the arm. He pulled me away and started yelling at me in an angry voice in a thick, weird accent. God has spoken to you twice before, and twice before you have ignored him. If you ignore him this time, he will turn his head from you for a very, very long time. Then he stormed away, shouting back over his shoulder, remember, you have been warned. I grabbed my friend and babbled something about what had happened, and he wanted to talk to the guy himself. We turned to get him, and he was gone. He either jumped off the side of the bridge or vanished into thin air. I was shaken at the time, but I've since come to recognize that what I had was a classic Men in Black encounter of the sort people have been having since at least the Middle Ages. I think they are archetypal manifestations of the gods which reside in the language center of the brain, as described by Julian Jaynes with his bicameral mind theory. Have any of you had any MIB encounters? Old shit, but any new shadow people or Men in Black coat shit, I can bring you some Eastern Europe say. Dad is not home, on a trip to Hungary, used cars to sell. GF, brother and mother home. Random one knocks on the door. Almost dark, not fully, but hardly any light. On the front door. Balkans and Nons know that no one actually uses any front doors. Everyone goes in from the back door for some reason. Fuck. Look out from the slightly blurred glass on the door. A human with some very unconventional clothing for the area. Very Western. A black school shooter coat. A black fedora-like hat. I shit you not. You can barely see any face, maybe because of the door. Even for the blurred window though, the generic skin color was not really seen, as told by my GF and her boomer mother. Mother spooked, but no one actually does this when there are break-ins here, so she just asked, who is it? Figure with very broken Ukrainian and a really weird, uncomfortable voice. Relative. Mother asks again, what relative? Who exactly? Relative. Slight back and forth. The guy just stands there and murmurs the same word in a weird way. Nothing else, or just ignores the question. Mother and the children, shitting themselves. Said that if he's a relative, call her on the phone quickly, and then she will let her in. Slight delay. Guy started to go to the street. It is not really weird here for people to just plainly go into your garden like that. Few seconds, disappears from sight. Mother opens door to see who it is. Disappeared. Ran to the street to catch a glimpse. No one. Told her about these legends. She can't sleep since then, and says it comes to her mind every day, because all three agree on everything. Slightly more info that these are normie people. They didn't know about all this stuff, nothing even similar. That's why my GF is spooked since then, because I showed her some illustrations, and she almost started crying, because the feeling from it was so familiar, clothing-wise, to pick related, for example, without any eyes or something. Also, it is weird that nothing happened to anyone else at the village. No one noticed anything similar, and it is quite the lively town. Also, it is in a random place, so why would a guy with a random black coat and fedora even come near a random Ukrainian town? Why did no one else see it? Why did all three family members see the same thing? I am really convinced that there is something to this legend. Maybe our minds animate this shit or something. What we see is what our minds animate also. Hard to justify really, especially that clothing form. The skin color was missing from the window too. It was very weird for them, a kind of strange unknown feeling they have never felt since, as I mentioned. Insane stuff, man. I shit you not, all of this happened. I am still trying to find justifications, especially even her boomer mother being uneasy, justifying it. Of course, she told us it was a man, but what was weird for her was that she could not see him on the street afterwards, and it never happened to anyone else. My GF's family have the most popular shop there, so mother asked basically everyone around. The Smallwood Incident. In early January of the winter of 1980, a school bus containing 50 8th grade students left from Smallwood Junior High and was going towards the Smallwood Science Museum. The Science Museum was 2 miles west of Smallwood Junior High, and on that day it was snowing, and the bus did not have snow tires. When the bus driver, a man named Mr. T, voiced his concerns, men in black trench coats and black hats told him that nothing will go wrong. The bus did not come back that evening. On the first night, the townspeople reported seeing yellow and blue lights in the sky, but this has never been confirmed. After 15 days, a search party started to find the bus, but was slowed down by the thick snow. On the 30th, the day after the disappearance, a small camp was found in the woods with schoolwork and school books in crudely made tents and burnt-out fires and gym bags. On the 41st day, 6 miles east of the camp, a series of graves were discovered. An autopsy found they belonged to 3 students of Harry Carson, Sarah Miles, and Bill Madison. Along with that, a rock stack was nearby with a paper inside, saying that the 3 were dead, but the students and teachers, along with the parents, were still alive. The note also contained an encrypted code for where they were going, but that has never been solved to this day. The code read 511920. Maybe you can solve it. 50 days later, in a tent was found with a lunchbox and schoolwork and pencils. One of the mothers recognized the pencils as belonging to her daughter, Agatha Hillman, but did not recognize the rest of the items. On that night, the townspeople reported seeing the lights again, but a heavy rainstorm and snow kept them from going out to the forest much. In April, when the Smallwood River unfroze, the school bus was found with the body of Tommy Edison. The school bus had been ransacked, and the black box had been systematically destroyed, something that took advanced knowledge to do. Soon after, another camp was found with 3 tents and a fire and a pot over it, and in the pot there was human flesh and skin. Also bones with cuts were found on the camp. Researchers concluded that the cuts could not have come from any human inventions. It is still unknown what happened to the Smallwood Junior High students in 1980. We can only hope that they found peace. As for a Wikipedia link, there is none. This is impossible to find on the surface net, but can be found on the deep web. What does everyone think about the Men in Black? I've had one encounter with them at a very young age, inside of the hospital. As a kid, I grew up in a hospital. I have had many things wrong with me, mentally and physically. In the end, I survived everything, with occasional trauma, and extremely weird and confusing stories from the time in the hospital that I remember very clear, including one with the Men in Black, albeit I think it was them. The story does need a lot more things to understand it better, such as that I was bound to die, on the highest floor of my hospital, not gonna dox myself, and was in the room with many other children that were also going to die. But as they thought we would die, they would experiment on us. When my parents were not there to sleep next to me, there would be doctors talking to me, albeit only one doctor, a woman, and 6 others looking at me with a mask on, and their eyes all looking very blue. The lady would tell me crazy things, like green bears and flying seahorses going through the hallways at night, and when I see them, I should embrace them or whatever. They would tell me that all these weird animals were living in the halls, and in this very room. Blue horses, green bears, flying neon seahorses. They would mimic these sounds in the middle of the night behind my wall, and I would not close an eye. Now that that's settled, way more insane stuff happened, such as encountering an entire ghost family, moving dolls, children dying in the bed next to me, the doctors playing with my body parts and experimenting on me, etc. They would occasionally bring me in a very dark room. Mind you, I have witnessed weird humanoids inside the hallways, and the doctors seemed inhuman too. In this dark room, I was tied in my bed, obviously, and the doctors would leave the room. Two men dressed in 60s black suits with hats on would enter my room. Their faces were as pale as snow, and their eyes, something that still goes on in my mind, but can't put my finger on. They would tell me about me seeing suspicious-looking behavior in the halls, such as weird humanoid-looking creatures, and were telling me that everything I saw was not real, and that I should forget all about it. I remember them injecting some kind of fluid into me, and me also watching Disney and other children animation shows, which would be very heavy. Eventually, they just looked in my eyes, and I just passed out. Woke up in some other room, where I would be held, and saw these men in black occasionally watching me through the windows, facing the hallway in the middle of the night. That is all I can remember from these men though. For some reason, out of all of the things that happened in the hospital, these men in black were what I really remembered clearly, including the ghost family. Dr. Herbert Hopkins was working as a consultant on a UFO case in Maine. One evening, he received a phone call from someone purporting to be an activist in the UFO community, asking him if he could visit Hopkins to discuss the case. Only minutes later, the man arrived. Weird facial features, pale skin, and something in his lips that looked like some kind of fake red tint to make the lips look more realistic, but failing the intent. The man showed him a coin in his hand. Coin starts to fade. Coin disappears. Same will happen to you. Dr. Hopkins got the message right at that moment. Man in black said his energy was low and went outside, vanished, no trace of him. Brazil, 1990s, Espírito Santo. A man that worked selling drinks and stuff in his vending stall on the beach saw some pretty lights in the sky. They were UFOs. 24 hours later, two men in black came to his vending stall, asking all about it. He got pretty confused, thought they were some sort of special or secret police. Men started to follow him. He moved to Rio de Janeiro. The men followed him and pursued him one day. Men loses his shit, go to police. They do nothing because of lack of evidence. Move again to Sao Paulo. One night coming back from work, he is being followed by a car with three men in black inside. He recognizes two of them. Car stops in front of him. He doesn't know why he did this, but he entered the car. Face covered, driving about 40 minutes, out of town, woods and shit. He sees a ship hidden in the trees. They took him inside. Stuck in a chair with straps and a metal bar, holding his head to his forehead. Man in black starts to unzip his disguise. It's a reptile humanoid. They show him a room full of dead people, hanging by their feet, stuck in hooks, like butchered cattle. He is in complete terror. Next thing he remembers is walking near his home. Get home, crying, shaking, and hysteric. Tells everything to his roommate. Roommate calls police and UFO expert. Few days later, they never see him again. No trace of him. On January 12, 1997, at 2:30 a.m., Pedro Vieira, a retired police officer, was driving home on Route 40 between Caguas and Homacha in Puerto Rico. All at once, he saw a disc-shaped UFO hovering over a field, levitating a ball with what he described as a tractor beam. Bellowing in terror, the ball passed through an aperture on the bottom of the saucer and was lost to sight. Vieira immediately stepped on the gas pedal, setting off in pursuit. Speeding down Route 40, he managed to keep the UFO in sight. All at once, he was cut off by a late model 4x4 pickup truck and forced to the side of the road. According to Vieira, two men in black BDU uniforms emerged from the truck, walked over to his car, and told me to let them do what they were doing. At first he did not understand what the men meant. Then he realized he was talking about the saucer. Having lost sight of the UFO anyway, Vieira continued his journey home. 5 hours later, shortly after 7 a.m., several Puerto Ricans found a mutilated cow further along on Route 40. The animal, they said, looked as if it had been dropped from a considerable height. I was abducted by aliens when I was 5. I am too tired to go into detail. I may in an hour or so if this thread is still alive. For now, I will green text. Go to sleep. Wake up. Noticed I don't have a ceiling. See nothing but white light coming down from the sky, flooding the room. Feel happy as I float up. Be greeted by something similar to a grey, but much, much taller, and he was surrounded by normal greys. Be gently put onto a white bed. Tied down. Needles and tubes stuck into arms and legs. Scrotum sliced down the middle. Testicles fondled. Sewn back up. Stereotypical anal probe. That is where most people stop listening, but I swear, this is what happened in my abduction, dream, / induced vision. Have visor over my eyes and watch videos. Converse for a few seconds with the tall one. Next thing I know, I am in a jeep. Wake up again in bed. I personally do not think that these were real aliens, but demons or similar entities. Everything I experienced could have been mentally projected, and the visions and feelings simulated. But it may have been real. Weird thing is, I do have rock with a Roman numeral 2 I found outside my house the next day, and a scrotum scar. And no, I did not have any men in black visits, but I did see men in white robes outside my house a week later. Both were Asians. It was odd, and most likely unrelated. This happened to me about 3 years ago. Be me, late June, daytime, around 3 p.m. Going for a walk in the hills. This is when things get weird. I hear a strange engine sound, like a car struggling to start. Definitely not a car. A small patch of forest separates the hillside of my neighborhood. Get disoriented and freaked out easily. Sound was way too weird for me to continue my walk. Head back towards the woods. Old guy emerges from the woods. Old guy, dressed like he is going to a fancy dinner party or some shit. Cannot ID his accent. Pretty sure he is not American. As he runs past me, he says, "Sorry, my dear man." Linger for a minute, watching him run off into the hills. No idea where he thinks he is going. No real civilization for miles beyond the hillside. Walk through the woods at a quick pace, totally freaked out. Go home and eat pizza and drink Dr. Pepper. 2 days pass by. At a bar with my bros, have a few drinks, tell them what had happened. At this point, we've all had quite a few beers, but we can handle our alcohol. Start coming up with theories. Ironically, only one guy mentions aliens. Another thinks the old dude was an escaped convict. 2 other guys convinced that someone was messing with me. Head home around 2 a.m. Pass out. Bang on the door jolts me awake at noon. This is when things get really creepy. I get up and answer the door. I see 3 men dressed, Will Smith style, men in black coats and hats, and the glasses. "Can I help you? We would like to ask you about the incident that occurred 3 days ago." Damn, I am hungover. It takes me a moment to process what they're saying and realize what they actually mean. Oh, alright. I invite them in, but they decline and just decide to stand on the doorstep instead. Not a single ounce of niceness in any of these people. I can feel a kind of malice emanating from them. The guy on the far left just stands there. The middle one is doing all of the talking, and the right one is writing on a notepad and just taking notes while the conversation goes on. I tell them the whole story, every single thing that happened. They show me 6 pictures of 6 different men. I recognize one of them, and I point to him. It's a pic of the old guy. I recognize him instantly. The one guy in the middle talking stares at me for a moment. These guys are total men in black. He removes his sunglasses. This is the part that still gives me bad dreams every once in a while. The dude has no eyelashes. I wince just a little bit. "Are you sure you've told me everything?" I assure him that I have, the entire story. Not a single bit of detail left out. 2, 3, let's go. Thank you for your time, Mr. Anon. That face when they found out my name and address. I'm never telling weird stories to IRL people again.